Here are the horoscopes for the week of the 25th to the 31st of May 2015. Now there's a lot of complex charts this week, but no planet is actually changing signs, so we're not called to feel that elemental shift or that energetic shift between a planet going from one sign to another. So it may seem kind of eerily quiet on the outside, and yet there's a lot of complexity in the chart of each day. So if you're interested in a quick catch-up on how to use the energy of each day, then please do visit my In the Stars This Week page with a link below. But the general themes of this week, starting with the Sun and Mercury retrograde and Mars in Gemini, seem to be calling us very much to reconnect with the inner child. Gemini is a very simple and joyful space once it gets out of its own way, once it gets out of its own mind. And with that Mercury retrograde, we've got a chance to go back in time. We've got a chance to go and revisit some of our childhood memories, maybe heal them if they're painful and they've been built on difficulties. Maybe go back and actually do some time travel healing with that Mercury retrograde. But very much a feeling threading throughout the week of going back to the innocence of childhood and picking up some of the creative joys that we had and we may have sidelined for responsibility and obligation along the way. So if you used to paint or climb trees or play the drum or work with oracle cards or make crispy cakes or whatever it is, then there may be an opportunity with some of the more complex days to find solace and to find that heart centre in some simple activities, some stuff that's just joyful and embraces the wonder of life, because we're still not called to be in our rational mind while we're in the Mercury retrograde. But like I say, going back to that core, going back to that simplicity, listening to the inner child, whether it's become a victim or not. And if you can find a victim story, then to maybe go back and heal that, because Mercury is a healer as well as the magician and the mentalist. It's actually the symbol that they use for healing or for the health industry, which is the twin serpents up the stave and opening the pineal gland at the top, the winged disc at the top. So that symbol of the caduceus or the caducus is the symbol that Mercury is seen carrying in the Greco-Roman embodiment of himself. So maybe time travel healing, going back to the inner child, listen to the inner voice, especially the intuition. Have we been ignoring our intuition? Now that we're in Mercury retrograde, can we dive into the other hemisphere of the right brain, and instead of, like I say, sidelining or under prioritizing for the mature responsibilities that we face with our planning and controlling mind, maybe this is just an opportunity to put control into a bubble for now and to go and explore some of those things that brought simple pleasure and joy and helped you shine your inner light, your true essence, before you learnt to put on a show for people or put on a front or hide behind barriers. So that's very much one of the themes that's running through the whole week. We have an awkwardness on Monday, which is Jupiter making an awkward angle to Pluto, and this is an interesting one because here we get to explore where we're abusing our power, really, where we're trying to dominate rather than radiate. I think that's the way I'd put it. Jupiter in Leo wants us to radiate our sovereign self, our true self, regardless of anybody else, and Pluto's going retrograde in Capricorn to show us maybe where we've built false structures around ourselves, or we've fallen in line with very kind of strong matrix ideas that aren't serving us. So there's a deconstruction there of the higher masculine power, but in this sense it feels like if you've given your light away, if you've given your power away, if you're pulling power from other people, or even your concept of power, what is empowerment? Wouldn't it be true essence rather than having to make somebody else react or get that validation from someone? So an interesting struggle there with the male power planets of Jupiter and Pluto to say, if it's complicated, if it involves lots of psychology and thinking, then by all means go in and do the deconstruction work while we've got the chance. But the goal there would be to find that simplest self, the inner sun, that just radiates on a truthful level, and to stop taking or giving away power from people, to look at how empowered or disempowered you feel with that Gemini inner child as well. So we're going deep to the core here at the beginning of the week to find that inner sun and to do some healing with the Mercury retrograde. The easing theme, but it's still present, is that the Sun and Mars have been opposite Saturn. So we've had this very tough opposition going on last week, and that starts to ease off now. But by Wednesday, Mars meets Mercury in Gemini. So again, this is the kind of more simple masculine, not the higher masculine, I wouldn't call it lower, but the more active masculine principle. Have a think about where we put our energy. Have a think about where the passion is for any project that you have. Because sometimes we push ahead with a project just because that was the plan that we made a while ago. But maybe revisit the passion that you have for something. And that will help you to realign to the right journey to actually get that energy out there and to make something of it. Because where you're planning to get to may not be where you need to get to. So revisit the rocket fuel of anything that you care about. Have a look at how you're using your energy. If things are coming up with blocks and brick walls, then that's for a reason. So is it that you're trying to push in the wrong direction? Can you gently revisit that, rethink that, realign to what the actual importance of the project is, and then maybe allow this Mercury retrograde to take a different course. We then on Thursday have the Sun trine the Moon, so a short harmonic, but there's energy there between the Sun and the Moon that should help us feel more coherent, more at ease, and more fluent. So there's that creativity comes flooding back in on Thursday. And while we're in the Mercury retrograde, your mind just wants a job to do. So if we are revisiting childhood pleasures, interests and creativity, then can you pick that up? Can you actually give your mind the job to do, to learn how to play the drum, or to learn a new language, or to learn a new recipe? Can you actually put your mind at ease by giving it something to do, something to concentrate on and something to create with, so that you have that outlet, but it's not about pushing forwards, it's about being in the present moment and embracing that inner child creativity. So that looks quite lovely for Thursday. There's not much going on apart from that except the general themes of Gemini. So we're looking at the polarity. We've been talking about the polarity. If you've got something that's been pushed all the way to one level, can you bring it back into the centre? Can you do that by recognising what the opposite polarity of that is, and then realising that everything is actually just on a scale? So this is one of the universal principles, polarity, and that's one of the principles that Gemini asks us to work with. There's a rhythm to life as well, so this is not about pushing forwards, this is about holding a space in this recalibration retrograde phase. Can we just go back and revisit how we've been thinking, restricted thoughts, mental concepts, and recalibrate those while we're in this space. There's also a feel of listening, because Gemini are very good at communicating in as much as they're good at speaking and streaming thought, but they're not specifically very good at listening. So my Yorkshire grandmother used to say, if in doubt, say nout. And this is quite a good phrase for Mercury retrograde in Gemini. Are you so busy trying to talk or talk over people or get your point across that you're actually missing the subtlety of the reason for the conversation or the soul expression of that other person, what's really being said? So maybe not a very verbal week, good opportunity to be quiet, to listen. And again, in the retrograde phase, that's where we get all of our messages. We can miss a lot of them and they'll just come back during the next retrograde if we're missing the point. So can we actually be still and quiet enough to listen to what's really going on, to hear between the lines and to get the real message? So our intuition speaks to us in a very quiet voice, a whisper. But if we're too busy shouting, then that's not going to get heard. Gemini is also about breathing. It's ruled by, the parts of the body ruled by Gemini are the eyes, the lungs and the arms and hands, because it's anything that comes in pairs that we use for expression. It's a very expressive sign. So perceptions there with the eyes, we start to see the world through a different hemisphere. And then the creation with the hands, if we can get our hands dirty with some good creative projects and keep ourselves busy, then we can make something. But what about the lungs? What about taking a deep breath? What about the held breath while we're in this bubble? Just not having to transmit or receive really, or concentrate on that, because we're doing that all the time, but just honouring the held breath and honouring that flow that goes in and out all the time, but holding that space and observing it from the held breath. So with the communications, with the retrograde hiccups that might be going on, a good policy this week might be to take a deep breath, find a place of observation and perspective, and first of all just listen and observe what's going on before actually acting. Because we're being asked to lose control a little bit here. We're getting to meet our control brain, the one that has to think plans into being. And yet we don't know what our next thought is going to be, so that is completely an illusion. So reconnecting with that inner child, reconnecting with the rocket fuel that Mars and Mercury conjunct will bring us on Wednesday. The real purpose and meaning, where we're putting our energy and why, what really matters to us, but not having to act upon it or plan upon it, but just enjoy stoking that inner fire. I feel that that's enough for this week. So it's quite a complex week, lots of stuff going on the outside, but very much to crawl into the centre, to stand up straight, to meet that truth and that simplicity, and to relight that inner fire and to listen with perspective but no necessity to act, would probably be the best way to work with the energies this week. So those are the horoscopes for this week, and I'll see you next week. If you'd like to explore some of the universal principles through your chart, because that's what your chart is, it's how you can take all of this magnificence that you are, the totality of what you are, and apply it according to your chart, according to your elemental breakdown, according to the position of the planets, and according to your purpose in this life, which may have past life resonance, then I would love to have a session with you. So please do come through to me. I work on Skype or in person in Camden, London, and I'm available for readings. So please do contact me if you'd like to learn a bit more about how to apply astrology and the universal principles to live the most harmonious life. It's not about preset destiny. It's not about what is going to happen. It's about looking at the path that you're on, where that's heading towards, and having a look at your strengths and weaknesses. Can you make any changes in order to be living your most authentic life? So please do come through to me for that if you'd like a reading. And of course, if you want to give your mind something to do and you fancy any of my online courses, then I have courses on astrology, tarot, Celtic feng shui, how to realign the energy of your space, and numerology and all sorts of other subjects. So those are all available over the internet. Please do contact me, zoehines7@gmail.com, and have a great week.